sight. In the darkness is the light. Out of the shadows of my life. In the darkness is the light.
Welcome once more to another exciting episode of the So Weird podcast. I am Zach.
I'm Kathy.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Kat.
And today we are talking about the Season 2 episode, Avatar, which is not, despite what your DirecTV programming guide may tell you, an episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender. It is, in fact, an episode of So Weird.
That tripped me up so much because when I was younger, after So Weird went off the air completely, sometimes it would pop up in TV Guide that So Weird would be on when So Weird was not randomly playing on Nicktoons Network. It was Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I was very disappointed.
Yeah, I fell for that once myself, and I remember seeing that pop up in the channel guide and just thinking, like, oh, that's really weird. Why is a Disney show playing on Nickelodeon? But getting very excited because So Weird hadn't aired in years, and this was before I discovered, well, I don't even remember what year this was, but this was probably before internet video was a practical thing. And I'd click on it, and it would be this cartoon show. So it was just some weird little programming guide bug. And it would happen several times, like more than once.
It happened up until, does anyone remember?
Mm-mm.
I think I read 2009, possibly.
And I can definitely remember it happening more than once because, like I said, the first time it happened, the first time I saw it happen anyway, I clicked on it and was very disappointed. And then the second time it popped up in the channel guide, my reaction was, nah, fool me once.
And the worst part is when you go to watch the Weird episode and it actually is the episode's Avatar, then you're still disappointed.
Yeah, yeah. The programming glitch may be the most interesting thing about this episode.
Guys.
All right, so in this episode of So Weird, we get a little change in the introductions where Jack is the one to do the intro. So Jack gives the intro, and he talks about computer programs and how people like kind of lose themselves building these virtual realities for themselves.
Yeah, well, it's sort of interesting. He mentions there being like a fantasy online game people are getting obsessed with, and I don't know when World of Warcraft first became popular, but it couldn't have been this early.
No, I was thinking more like Second Life.
I think that's what they were referring to.
No, this was
Second
way
Life?
before Second Life. I'm not. The only thing I can think of that might have been around circa 2000, 2001 was RuneScape might have been around, but Second Life was later, and Warcraft I'm pretty sure was later too.
I like how he says that there were 125,000 people on this fantasy world, and that was probably like such an impressive number back then.
It seems very low now.
Yeah. So Jack opens up the episode talking about computer programs and virtual reality. So surprise, surprise, in this episode of So Weird, Fiona is not part of the mystery, and instead we find Carrie and Molly stuck inside a virtual reality because stupid Carrie doesn't know how to recognize spam email.
Yep.
Well, watching it now, it seems completely fallacious that somebody would open a mysterious email with a link on it, no other information, just a link, and click the link. But, you got to remember, at this point in time, the internet was still sort of a new thing, so it's at least kind of plausible, though it doesn't really give you a good impression of Carrie's powers of judgment.
Yeah, because, he was trying to contact or talk to a girl that he met after a gig. Yeah, Tammy Faye?
He thought it was a Tammy Faye, but he wasn't really sure. So he was just going through like all the emails in Fee's inbox, like, ooh, could that be her?
Are we to assume from this that Carrie does not have his own email?
It looks
Yeah.
like nobody has their own email except for Faye. So everybody kind of just hijacks Fee's.
Because on Fee's email, she gets stuff from Gabe for Jack, and she gets stuff from Biker Mike for Jack. And then I think there was also an email from Grandpa for Molly.
The only problem with this is, we know Jack is active on the internet from Vampire, And Molly is an honest-to-God rock star, so you'd think she would have at least business email to contact people through. I mean, I know this was early, but by 2000, I would imagine that would have existed. I mean, she's actively touring and stuff. I'm just saying that's the part of the episode that pushes believability.
I just don't understand why they share an email, because I don't know, was that a thing back then? I don't think it was.
Nope, not in my house.
And with AOL, everybody had their own account.
We have to ask John Cooksey.
This was an episode that was produced to essentially give Cara DeLazia a little time off. So that's why she only appears in a handful of scenes. Fiona is off in New York visiting her aunt, so she is not directly involved in this adventure, though her presence looms large. However, I kind of wonder if there were other issues with this one, because this strikes me as an incredibly cheap episode. The majority of this episode is shot on sound stages and on green screen, and boy, is it obvious.
Yep.
Yeah, I compare it to like a bottle episode. That's what it feels like. Like maybe an episode designed to be cheap because they're in the bus most of the episode, and yeah, with all the green screens, they don't really have to go on location very much.
It's sort of a bottle episode in the sense that they're stuck in this internet pocket dimension thing.
Also, I definitely remember reading that because it was like a Disney Channel show, obviously they didn't have like an unlimited budget to compensate for episodes where they use a lot of special effects and shooting on locations. They had to have more cheap episodes. Like Encore was designed to be a cheap clip episode.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty normal practice for genre shows that have special effects elements. For there to be like a cheap episode shot towards the end of the season, or the production season anyway. Yeah, I don't think does anybody like this one?
No.
It gets me mad, but I can watch it and be entertained. Yeah.
I actually really enjoy this episode for most of it until Jordan shows up at the end.
Yeah, I think everybody hates Jordan.
Yeah, I hate it.
Yes.
One of the most widely despised So Weird characters. Yeah, Jordan is terrible. He's just the smarmy, obnoxious creep. I mean, he is a creep in the truest definition of the word. He has set up this elaborate plot to essentially kidnap Fiona, who he is obsessed with.
He's a cyber stalker. If Facebook existed, he was the original Facebook stalker before Facebook.
Yeah, no, and the episode is kind of ahead of the time in that regard, because this was when the internet was only in its infancy. Well, when the internet was just beginning to become a common thing. And so the terms e-stalking and social media were not really phrases in anybody's lexicon at the time. And here you have an episode of this show that is exactly about that. And Fiona is maybe a little too loose with sharing personal information on her website, apparently. We discover that.
Which is something that a lot of people do now, share photos of their family and just regular, kind of like diary blog entries. I'm sure she does that. But I guess like this episode shows, you never know who's watching.
Yeah, well, the culture has changed in that regard, because now with stuff like Facebook and Twitter, it's considered kind of okay to share pictures of friends and family for whatever reason.
I think it's important to bring up that today, when we show stuff on Facebook, we have the option to check the settings and make sure it's only visible to the people we want to be visible to. Fiona clearly did not have the technology to do that. If it was on the internet, anybody could see it, and clearly anybody includes groups like Jordan.
Yeah, and I don't know how it was with your guys' experiences when you were younger, but I know when I first got online, my parents would always tell me, don't tell anybody your phone number or your address. Don't post any pictures, because there are perverts out there who will abduct you and murder you and rape you. So I don't know how it was with anybody else, but it was drilled into my head at a young age that you do not share personal information on the internet ever.
And you do not talk to strangers.
Yeah, you don't get any strange vans.
Don't go into chat rooms because those are bad.
Right, chat rooms are full of perverts. This is what I was taught as a young person on the internet for the first time in the late 90s, early 2000s. And clearly Fiona did not get that lecture.
No, because it seems like Molly doesn't know much about the internet.
Neither did the writers of the show, apparently, because in this episode, this is another episode where the computer can do anything. And just by sending a computer virus type thing to Fiona's email account, Jordan has engineered a digital netherworld that he can draw people into, which is completely at his control. He can edit this data like a god. And he's primarily using this ability to stalk girls on the internet, which is what any, fucking weirdo would do. If it isn't evident, there might be some narrative problems in this episode.
Also, the fact that they get to change the setting around them. Molly, Carrie, and Jack just have to click a postcard, changes where they are to ridiculous places, like with a volcano outside, to a campground, to water suddenly pouring into the bus because they're underwater.
Yeah, this was clearly a 1 a.m. in the writer's room, all we've had, we're gulping coffee and donuts trying to get this thing done before a deadline idea.
Well, that's because they had to write this episode because the original one wasn't allowed by Disney, right?
Right.
Right.
Let's
talk about that one because it's far more interesting.
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about Chrysalis. I've left it up to you guys because I assumed you would know more.
Yes. So the original premise for this episode, to give Carrot and Lizzie a week off, would have been Jack and Carrie going back to Carrie's college for a campus visit. Originally, Carrie was supposed to have been discovered to have an alcohol problem. But when Disney had an issue with Carrie having an alcohol problem, then they switched it to his roommate Drew having an alcohol problem. And it was the, traditional Disney lesson of, oh, drinking is bad. And then the So Weird vibe to it was at the bottom of his drink was like this little worm type thing. And when he drank it, strange things happened.
So he got a weird, evil bootleg bottle of tequila was the MacGuffin for this week.
Yes. I forget exactly what the weird element was. I always thought the most interesting parts of this episode that Disney never allowed happen was that it would have been discovered that Molly had developed an alcohol problem after Rick's death. And she would have helped Carrie or Carrie's friends get to AA and get through his problem.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been pretty interesting since, everybody knows that Mackenzie Phillips has had a history of problems with substance abuse. So clearly it would have been intriguing to see her bring that autobiographical element to the episode. And as interesting as that sounds, I think there might have been a concern if it had been made that it could have come across as a very special episode, one of those.
Mm-hmm.
But So Weird was pretty good about handling that kind of stuff, so it probably would have been all right. It's certainly better than this.
It would have been better, but to me, it still seems way too out there. That's me. It just seems too intense.
The psychedelic worm is weird. Yeah, but so when we were talking earlier about how this was probably something that was done cheaply and quickly to fill out the season order, that's probably exactly what it was because their original idea got vetoed.
And that just makes it another reason why I hate this episode. I hate it for the episode that it is. I hate it because Jordan, fuck you make me sick. It's not this episode that we could have had. We could have had character developments. The only hint of character development we got in this episode was that Jack sees something that he can't explain and he's at a loss for words. At the end of the episode, Jordan has to go and erase some files and everybody's memory is wiped clean. They have no recollection of this experience whatsoever, rendering this entire episode completely useless.
Yeah, I hate it when they do a blank slate thing like that. That is just why are you wasting my friggin' time? So weird.
The only thing this episode could have been good for is Jack experiencing the paranormal, but it doesn't do that because Jack has no memory of it.
Yeah, and
it could have redeemed itself, but it doesn't.
Yeah, because he really, there's that moment. I think the money shot in this episode was when he walks up to this computer grid formation at the end of the street and sticks his hand through. I seem to recall seeing that in a preview or a commercial for this episode or something.
Yeah, that sticks out. And I think when people try to think of this episode, that's the picture that pops up in your head.
Yeah. It is.
And that's a very late 90s thing. This is kind of an obscure reference. It reminds me of one of the Halloween episodes of The Simpsons where Homer disappears in a portal behind the house and ends up in the CGI world. That looks very similar to that.
That's what I remember also. But I don't remember the episode except that green, those green lines, and it being like a really weird episode.
Yeah, well, it was one of the Halloween episodes, and it was a parody of a Twilight Zone segment called Little Girl Lost. But yeah, that seems to me that kind of enamorment, is that a word? Sure, let's go with it. That kind of enamorment of primitive computer graphics is just a very late 90s thing in my brain, because it was a new toy and everybody was sort of fascinated with what it could do. But otherwise, the special effects in this are hella cheap. It's just, at the end when they're on the beach, it is the shittiest looking green screen in the world.
Beach is so bad.
I like when it turns into a thunderstorm, though. In the blink of an eye. Wow.
Well, and the one thing I do like about this is when Jordan is trying to come on like I am as a god, and Molly is just sort of staring at him like, bitch, get out of my way before I cut you.
Yeah, and that line where he has of like, oh, I brought Fiona here. She will be my queen. And Molly's just like, your queen?
Yeah, like 911, this Jordan kid is a joke, and nobody takes him seriously, even though he wields infinite power.
Okay, so the little bit that I like of this episode, it's mainly on the Phillips family, if you just ignore Jordan, including Carrie. And we see a little bit of Ned and Irene.
Yeah, they do have a cute moment at the beginning of the episode where they're in a thrift shop or something, and Ned picks up one of these old-timey, it's kind of like an old-timey Viewmaster, and I've seen them before. There's a word for them. I don't know what it is. But it would produce sort of this weird quasi-3D image when you look through it.
Yeah, and I like Jack taking on more of a lead, at least in the beginning of the episode, and how he becomes a little protective over Molly and Fee once Jordan starts going crazy.
And we do get a couple of callbacks. We get a callback to Rebecca and Tulpa.
Yeah, which is really odd because Jordan just brings up, I know Rebecca. I'm like, why would Rebecca have an email address?
Yeah, this person who's living this nomadic lifestyle, I can't imagine would be online.
And Molly has no reaction.
Sorry, I can't imagine Rebecca's parents letting her near a computer.
Yeah, no, me neither. It doesn't make any sense.
Carrie in this episode is so funny, though. He's like my saving grace for this episode.
Well, I'm surprised Kat hasn't brought it up. There is a moment where Molly hugs Jack and Carrie and says, I love you guys. And I'm sitting there watching this thing like, oh, well, knowing how the shippers were for the show, how the shippers are, I bet this was some grist for them. What say you, Kat?
Actually, I thought you were going to talk about that moment where Jack sticks his hand through the portal and Carrie and Molly exchange glances that look very meaningful, like they're staring deep into each other's souls.
They hug, and she tells him that she loves him, and you pinpoint a glance?
Yeah. Like, I can't explain it, but it feels different the way that Carrie hugs her back. Like, the way his arm is.
Okay, I just want to mention some stuff here. The kid, another reason to dislike Jordan is the actor playing him is not very good in the part. Richard DeClercq is his name, and he's done some television and some movies. He's been in some things. And a problem with this character, in addition to just him being a creepy weirdo and his motivation being really kind of out of nowhere, is the fact that he's a creepy weirdo and he gets like a redemption arc.
Yeah, that's what I hate the most.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, are we supposed to feel bad for him because he's, in quotes, lonely? He's probably lonely because of how much of a jerk and stalker he is.
Yeah, he's a literal stalker,
yeah. Yeah, I remember, I think Molly says, I don't think he's evil, guys. I think he's lonely. And I'm like, well, you can be both. Haven't you seen Dr. Horrible? Like, come on.
Or lots of other things.
Like, seriously, don't excuse it, man.
At the end, he just shows up on the bus, and Irene and Ed are like, well, who's your friend?
And they're like, I don't know. And then they just forget about it. Like, they don't call the cops on this kid just breaking into their bus.
you know, he had his shirt tucked in and glasses, and they probably thought, oh, he's innocent or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, and earlier in the episode, he threatens to unmake Molly and Jack and Carrie, and then we're supposed to feel sorry for this douchebag. I'm sorry, it doesn't wash. If this was made in 2017, he would, have Pepe the Frog in his avatar, and he would be trolling people on Twitter. He'd be sending death threats to movie stars. He is exactly that type.
Yeah.
So this is, for me, the worst episode in So Weird history.
Do you mean like worst season 1, season 2 episode, or worst episode period?
No, worst overall for me, because with season, I feel like season 3 is better because I have lower expectations for season 3. You're supposed to be better than this, and the fact that it's not Chrysalis, it just makes it so much worse.
I mean, I would definitely say this is one of the weakest, I mean, if not the weakest, season 1, season 2 episode. I think it doesn't have a pooping changeling baby in it, so it's better than that one. I'll put it above that episode for sure.
You do an Annie moment, so that gets a pass for me.
Yeah, no, I hate that episode with a fiery vengeance, so I'm sorry. I can't help you out there. Another interesting thing.
And Jackson.
Okay, yeah, all right. But the point is, no, it's bad. It's for sure bad. I would not say this is my least favorite episode in the entire history of the show, but it's low. I would rank this one lowly, for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe one of the reasons why this one kind of is not too hot is I don't think the writer had done any other episode of So Weird. This was written by a writer named Jeff, I'm going to butcher this last name here, Vlaming, Vlaming. And he's a pretty busy writer. He's written on pretty much every single genre television show of note of the last 2 decades. X-Files, Briscoe County Jr., Weird Science, Lois and Clark, Animorphs, Xena, Murder in Small Town X, I think everybody remembers that thing, Battlestar Galactica, Teen Wolf, on and on, Hannibal, Fringe. So he's a busy writer, but I don't see any other So Weird credits for him.
When I search on Wikipedia, it shows, on the list of So Weird episodes, it shows that he did 2 more in season 3.
Okay.
He did Earth 101.
That episode sucks too.
And then the other one, The Great Encanto.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate that one too.
Boy, this is a hat trick here, 3 through 3. Well, I don't know what his other screenplays are like, but yeah, his work on So Weird does not inspire a lot of confidence. And this was another Paul Lynch episode. Paul Lynch previously directed Angel, Drive, Nightmare. All those episodes are pretty good, but this one is, I have no issue with the visual presentation of it, but I don't think it was his fault. But yeah.
I wonder if John Cooksey and the other writers were just you know what? Disney won't let us write it. Here, you just write whatever the hell you want. Go ahead. We don't care.
Who knows? Well, does anybody else have anything else they want to say?
The one part of this episode that I like is Jack talking about his memories on the tour bus when he and Steve were little and how they would make little towns and build them with little popsicle people. I thought that was a really cute story.
Yeah, I did like that.
Yeah, I don't think about it too often how Jack and Steve were on the road when they were little kids and how that might have shaped them. Though
I do wonder, at the beginning of the series, Molly is going on a big tour for the first time in a while. So,
I do think it's sweet that Fee ends up helping them, even though they've been, horrible to her in terms of her acceptance of the weird. I wonder if down the road, what did she do later on? She guys, what happened? And they were like, what? What are you talking about? Because her memory wasn't erased, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. They even talk about how she had to go to a neighbor of her aunt in order to find a computer with internet access to contact them.
Yeah, she'd be really concerned if she heard them say all that and then their memories were wiped.
That'd be a good fan fiction. Just like Fiona's like, oh guys, is everybody okay? What happened? Everybody's just like, oh, what? Huh? What happened? What are you talking about?
Maybe she'll think that they're playing a joke on her.
Yeah, because that's what her initial reaction was when Jack tried to say something weird's going on. Guys, April Fool's Day is in April.
Yeah, that's a cute line. I do like that moment. I just feel like this episode was kind of ill-conceived in a lot of ways. What say you, Kathy? I mean, general thoughts?
I just wanted to say that the moral, part of the episode or the climax was when Molly was giving her little speech, right?
Right.
About how, it's not about these worlds, but it's more like the physical aspect of being around people and having friends and family. And I don't know how that would motivate Jordan to suddenly be a better person.
And just from a writing perspective, it's a little lazy because you have a character outright kind of explaining the moral of the week in just words, just in exposition. So, yeah, that was kind of weird too. I think maybe there was this concern at the time because, the internet was still new, that people would become addicted to it. And in fact, there's a line from Fiona where she says something like, does she miss her laptop? And she admits that she does. And of course, now it's just a matter of fact. Everybody's got their phones in their pockets. Everybody's checking Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and what have you all the time. So we all are hooked to the internet now. We all are on that morphine drip of likes and chips-ins and responses and such. So it's true. It's absolutely true. The internet is an addictive narcotic, and we're all hooked.
But general, I say that I get entertained because I just like seeing Molly and Jack and Carrie a lot throughout the episode. But that's about it. Rating time?
Oh, okay. Is it time for the rating? I would give this one a 3 out of 10, which is, I believe, my lowest season 1, season 2 rating.
I would give it a 4 out of 10.
Emily?
Believe it or not, I give this one... I know, my rating system is total crap. Okay, I give this one a thumbs up and a thumbs down. So, like I said, I actually really do enjoy the first 15 minutes of this episode up until Jordan says something like, "No, I have all the cards." Because I don't know, I guess I really like the idea of being able to, instantly go to a different world, even if it is a virtual one. So the postcards... That was kind of really appealing to me watching it. Like, oh, you just pressed a postcard and then you're somewhere else.
Like a volcano.
Yeah. I like that aspect of it. And I know it's a little cheesy, dated with their, perception of the internet and everything, but it's kind of a nostalgic cheesy for me and not like I'm wincing cheesy.
Well, I understand the nostalgia thing. I feel that all the time while watching this show. I mean, I bring that up constantly. So...
Yeah.
All right, Kat, what say you?
1.
Ooh.
Episode is as low gets for me. I cannot emphasize how much I dislike this episode.
It's Fathom for me.
Is that one next?
No.
Okay. Yeah, well, needless to say, none of us are big fans of this one. All our ratings are kind of on the lower end.
Well, for an episode that wasn't supposed to exist, I think that's okay.
Is a thing that should not be.
Yes.
All right, so do we have any feedback this week?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
So this is from East Street Band Fan 1, and they commented on our fall episode, and they said, "Sorry for the long post, but to start off, I think it's great that there was a Ned-centric episode. I think it is the only other one next to Mutiny where Ned is the main character. His acting was great in this episode. You can definitely tell he went over the top to make sure his acting was superb for when he and Sam had to relive the memory of Pete's death. Also, this episode also reminded me a lot of Season 3's Eddie's Desk, whereas Lewis Peltz was really Pete in Fall, Bud, the janitor, was really Eddie in Eddie's Desk. Both were left a little bit open as to whether the characters actually weren't dead, but were actually still around in a different capacity. Lewis really being Pete and the ghost of Eddie at the end of Eddie's Desk. The other interesting thing is how in Fall, it forced Ned and his friend to relive a painful memory, which in turn led Fee to realize Lewis was Pete. In Eddie's Desk, it took Bud's recognition for Annie to realize Bud was Eddie."
Yeah, Fall is like a good version of Eddie's Desk.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, East Street Band. You are the real dancer in the dark for all your contributions to our feedback session. Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, thank you. And for our episode Blues, we got one comment from Asian SETI. I hope that's how you say it. They said, I generally enjoyed the episode and remembered it well. But yeah, the appropriation and fit every Black Southern fun fact into 22-ish minutes was kinda yikes. The show could have benefited from more world mythos, as long as it's done well. Although there's only so much mythology and urban legends they could fit into 3 seasons. They did sort of dive into them in season 3 for Exit 13, Mummy, Babel, a tiny bit with Voodoo, and Annie's song. But,
Well, I gotta say, I think the world of urban legends and mythology is pretty much limitless. So, but that's me.
They pointed out those particular episodes in season 3, and I was kind of wondering why. What about those episodes did they like, or I don't know?
Because they were talking about mythology and urban legends, and then they
Okay.
said they did sort of dive into them in season 3.
Okay. Yeah, with like Annie's song and the Native American culture.
Those episodes are problematic.
Yeah. More
Yeah,
This show didn't do a good job exploring cultures.
Yeah, the handling of Native American Indian culture in Annie's song is about as subtle as the handling of Black African American culture was in Blues. So, which is to say, not that much. But thank you for the feedback.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, and then we got a comment from Andrea. So for Blues, they said, after this podcast, my mind will now never read the AF the same way ever again whenever I watch Blues. Although some of you don't favor this episode too much, I really enjoy it. I like that Molly gets to sing a song that is unlike the tone and mood for her usual music. It is refreshing and shakes things up. It keeps the series fun. I'm not sure what you all think of Avatar, but that is another episode I really love because that episode gives the skeptics a chance to witness an abnormal paranormal situation firsthand, and Jack narrates the intro. I think Jordan's attempts to intimidate Molly, Jack, and Carrie into luring Fee into his virtual world are cheesy, but the encounter with this lonely computer genius highlights Molly's motherly nature when she reaches out to Jordan with compassion, and afterward when she holds on tight to Carrie and Jack in a loving and protective manner. It also brings out Jack's protective side when he insists that Fee will not come to the virtual world. The episode also has tiny references to other episodes, like Rebecca when Jordan pulls up her email address. And I don't know if it is intentional or not, but one of Molly's lines in the episode is, I didn't hear a siren. Laugh out loud. Plus, when Fee's message to everyone shows up on the bus window, it's almost similar to when Fee reaches out to Camilla through her computer when she is comatose and lost. Also, I commend Mackenzie Phillips for great face acting. I love the look of longing on her face when she sees Rebecca's email address and images of Rick. I also appreciate the bits of humor, especially when Carrie slams his hand down on the volcano postcard and Molly says, Carrie, what are you trying to do, fry us?
Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, Andrea, but
I'm very sorry to disappoint you.
I do like all that you pointed out with
Me
the
too. I
references.
really do like the moment where Jack stands up for Faye.
yeah, as always, Andrea's feedback is great and very in depth, and I feel like she's an honorary host of the show at this point.
Yeah,
Agreed.
but yeah, Jordan messes this whole episode up.
I like that she mentioned the pictures of Rick on the screen, because that was nice. They had a lot of pictures in the background of
Yeah,
Yeah, and I'm curious when those were taken, because I don't recall seeing a lot of them before.
yeah, like there's one of them with the grandparents and one of the younger children having a picnic. Is nice.
Yeah, I mean, there's a picture
It's a-
of Fiona goofing around, and she has glasses on, and she's holding a guitar or something.
That picture we've seen before in Medium.
Okay.
but it's cool to screen grab them.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that is neat. Those little pictures at the end. I hadn't thought about that.
But yeah, thank you. And thanks to everyone always for commenting.
Like, I say this every time, but we really do love and appreciate the fact that everybody, our listeners are so communicative and send us so much feedback. Really, as I've said before on my other podcasts, I never get feedback. So it's nice to know that people are listening to this. So thank you so much.
And I'm still going strong. That means a lot.
Well, going strong-ish. The fandom still exists, you should say.
Yes, and that's impressive for a Disney Channel show that's over 15 years old now that Disney Channel completely forgot.
All right, so is that everything?
On our forum, the boss applesauce, Melissa, on our little chat box, she said that apparently Disney is going to be rebooting Mickey Mouse Club.
Oh, what's even the point?
I'm Googling it, and I think it says as a Facebook series?
A Facebook series? Is Facebook getting into original video production stuff?
Wait, being a Facebook exclusive series instead of airing on Disney Channel. But Club Mickey Mouse does promise to be an exciting blend of old and new, according to BuzzFeed. Club Mickey Mouse will celebrate the original club of yesteryear while bringing the show into present day with a diverse cast of talented young creators.
I feel like the time for the Mickey Mouse Club has kind of passed, but okay. The fact that it's going to be a Facebook series, that is strange and frightening to me.
Wasn't Mickey Mouse Club really for kids, though? Are kids on Facebook?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. The early 90s reboot, which I don't remember, but I do know that like Justin Timberlake and Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera, I believe, were all on it as little wee chitlins. Like the thing with that show is it was really aimed at like the tween audience. Mm-hmm. And are they on Facebook? I was under the impression that the teenagers were all about the Instagrams, not so much the Facebooks.
I have no idea.
This entire development is baffling to me.
There was another reboot announced today, or a potential reboot related to the paranormal.
Oh, you're talking about the Sabrina the Teenage Witch announcement?
Yes.
I'm actually very excited about this. I don't know who has been reading the Chilling Tales of Sabrina comic book series, which is not a comedy at all. It's actually a surprisingly good horror series. When they first announced it, I thought it was a terrible idea. A grim, dark Sabrina the Teenage Witch, but the comic's great. So the idea of that becoming a television series, I think, has a lot of potential. Though it's from the same people who have done Riverdale, which I have never seen and have no interest in. But I am intrigued by the a Sabrina series that keeps with the tone of that comic book. I feel like that could actually be pretty cool.
I didn't realize it was based off a comic.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting, I guess. I never watched Sabrina, so I don't have any particular love for it or care about what happens to it. But
man, I was all about that show when I was like a kid. I loved the Talking Cat, and Melissa Joan Hart was an early crush. So yeah, that's a big one for me. It's a terrible show. Like I watch it as an adult, and I think, what did I ever see in this? But I was a fan as a kid.
I think it's because the cat talked. I just don't like talking animals. Yeah.
Oh.
All right. Well, if nobody else has anything else they want to talk about, I'll promote this a little bit. I have a blog that's devoted to film. It's www.zaxfilmthoughts.blogspot.com. And currently I've just begun my 6-week-long Halloween Horror Fest blogathon, where I will be reviewing as many horror films and television shows as possible. And if you're interested in old genre television, this year I'm reviewing stuff like Masters of Horror and Perversions of Science, which was HBO's follow-up to Tales from the Crypt, and stuff like that. And lots of horror movies from all time periods and eras. So if you enjoy listening to me talk about random bullshit, definitely check that out, please. I appreciate it. Give me your clicks. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you for listening. This has been the So Weird Podcast. I'm Zach.
I'm Kathy.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Kat.
Keep the faith and don't open strange email attachments.